Billions of people around the world believe in God, following many faiths and spiritual traditions. But what does God mean in a person's life? It feels like being connected to something beyond yourself. That's important. Looking to God for love, security, truth, and goodness goes back many thousands of years. But we don't always get those feelings. For many people, even though they don't speak up, believing in God is a challenge. Not because they lack faith, but because they don't feel connected to a living God, one who actually makes things happen in their lives. Even before we begin this program, let me share with you the secret to knowing God. Are you ready? Yes. So here we go. Everything in the entire universe has a single source. Your innermost being is that source. When your awareness is unblocked and free, God is not difficult to find. The divine is within. Let me give you a powerful antidote for doubt. There's a certain kind of experience that changes someone's life. In psychology, it's called a peak experience. Peak experiences can happen at any time, often out of the blue. A man playing racquetball took a bad spill and he heard it snap as his Achilles tendon broke. Yet, in his agony, something amazing happened. He felt a surge of bliss and he started to laugh. The colors around him started to shimmer. He was flooded with the certainty there was nothing to fear, not his pain, not even death. This is typical of what is known as a peak experience. It's like having a veil drop away, revealing another reality. Peak experiences have happened to saints and sages, artists and poets, and also to common people. The poet William Wordsworth tells us that as a child, he would see the entire world bathed in light. He'd have to hold on to a tree to make sure solid objects were real. In the aftermath of this kind of experience, you feel uplifted. Sometimes a transformation has occurred and nothing will ever be the same again. Peak experiences are quite diverse. Many possibilities are reported, although some common threads run through them. You glimpse a reality beyond everyday life. You feel incredibly free. For someone who's religious, it can be like seeing the kingdom of heaven within, as Jesus taught. Even a deep-seated fear, like the fear of death, suddenly vanishes. The one thing all peak experiences have in common is freedom from doubt. There's no religious argument to defend. The experience speaks for itself. So when I thought of how to address the future of God, what came to mind is experience, not theology. Linking a peak experience to God was simple in an age of faith, because our modern ideas of psychology, brain function, and physics did not exist. Any extraordinary experience was touched with the divine. In the scientific age, however, God isn't part of how we explain the universe. We think of reality in objective terms. When faced with a peak experience, researchers look to the person's psychological background or to which portion of the brain lights up on an MRI. Faith by itself has very little chance of overcoming doubt in a secular society. So let's see if we can make room for science and room for God at the same time. Beyond the five senses, we transcend the everyday world. We can link a peak experience with this idea that reality is mysterious. In a peak experience, when the physical mask falls away, people find themselves closer to the source. You can't buy a peak experience no matter how many bonus miles you have on your Visa card. The best way to transcend, which fortunately is free of charge, involves looking deep into reality and how that works. I'll explain as soon as we return. Nothing is more important than waking up to who you really are, because there is infinite potential inside all of us. I know you've heard those words before. What's been missing is a way to activate the possibilities that cry out to emerge. God isn't just about worship and faith. God is about making dreams come true in your life today by going to the source. That's what awaits us when I return. Thank you. Want to experience more of these in their lives. We saw that people are already having peak experiences. But is that the same as returning to the source? In physics, the same question is being asked in another language, where source refers to the origins of matter, energy, time, and space. God is involved in both pursuits because reality can have only one origin. Also, the source can't be in time and space because everything in time and space goes back to an earlier cause. And if God was the same as stars, galaxies, molecules, and atoms, which go back to something more basic as their cause, we'd have to ask, who made God? Once you ask, who made God, you're implying that there is something more basic than God, more powerful than God, more knowing than God. The only possibility would be God already. And so we wind up in a circle. God can't make God because this means that God was already made. You see the difficulty? Our source must be outside time and space as we know it, and the same is true of the universe. The problem has created a lot of headaches for scientists and religious people, but they take different medicine for it. The scientists use mathematics to cure their headache. The religious people use faith. I have my own favorite medicine, and being a doctor, I trust it. But before we get to that, we have to look more deeply into this whole problem of the source. Where do we come from? That's the issue when we talk about sources. Science can follow evolution backward very far. Human beings can be traced back billions of years to the first primitive life forms on Earth. These can be traced back to the earliest organic chemicals that would eventually evolve into DNA. Organic chemicals can be traced back to stars back to interstellar dust, and so on, right back to the Big Bang. You might be sitting there wondering, what does that mean to me in my life? Here it is in a sentence. The source of the universe is also your source, and you can access it this moment to tap into your infinite potential for love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, but also for intuition, for insight, for imagination, for the power of intention and creativity. But evolution doesn't tell us where the actual source is. The mystery of God and the mystery of the universe are tied together because once you go beyond time and space, what seems to exist is nothing. To a religionist, God was in the void before creation began. To a scientist, something without a name filled the pre-creation state. This something contains the infinite possibilities that have emerged since the Big Bang, organizing and orchestrating a cosmos that is incredibly fine-tuned, allowing for the evolution of life on Earth and eventually the human brain. Let's give this something a name that could explain everything. By far, the best candidate is consciousness. The New Testament says, in the beginning was the Word, and words how conscious acts. You can't speak if you're unconscious. I'm going to argue for a conscious universe that contains all dimensions, hidden and visible. Such a universe is sentient and aware. It contains the laws of nature, but also of evolution. It knows how to organize itself from the infinitesimal level of subatomic particles to the level of infinity beyond the farthest galaxies and black holes. In such a universe, and here's where you and I come in, creation is happening every second. So if creation is emerging from the source, it must be happening inside you now and forever. The pioneering physicist Erwin Schrödinger said, "Now never ends." This timeless now, which endlessly renews itself, is your window to eternity. So as you're listening to me, right this second, just turn your attention to yourself, the listener. If you feel a presence this moment, it's your own simplest state of awareness, your core identity. It's simple. It's now. It never leaves you. This is what the spiritual traditions call your soul. If you want a non-religious word, this is your ground state of being, existence, awareness. It was there when you were a baby. It was there when you were a teenager, and it is there now. In the presence of this core consciousness, the soul, thoughts come and go, emotions come and go. As do all experiences, including the experience of your changing body. But you are not your experiences. You are the timeless being in the midst of change. You are always now, transcendent and eternal. The reason for taking the leap into this new model of the universe is simple. It gives us a bridge between everyday life and the source, and every bridge invites somebody to cross it. Let me give you some telling quotes from the brilliant quantum physicist pioneers who started to revolutionize our view of reality a century ago. Erwin Schrödinger: "To divide or multiply consciousness is something meaningless. In truth, there is only one mind." Max Planck: "I regard consciousness as fundamental. We cannot get behind consciousness." These quotes echo scripture when it says that God is one, and that God is the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. If there is only one mind, then your mind and mine and everybody else's is an expression of the same underlying field, the way a magnet is part of the Earth's magnetic field, or a single wave is part of the ocean. The Vedic sages used the example of everything made out of gold. A gold bracelet, a gold watch, and a gold chalice may think they are separate individuals, but in reality, they come from the same essence, gold. You and I feel like very separate minds. We've led unique lives, and we prize that uniqueness. But if we look deeper, we are expressions of the one mind, cosmic consciousness. As Rumi says, you're not just a drop in the ocean, you're the mighty ocean in the drop. But is it fair to equate God and consciousness? In every religious tradition, God has a mind, and sometimes a really bad temper. But is the universal mind, the cosmic mind, the same as our mind? The Hebrew Bible says yes, in a very short but profound verse. "Be still and know that I am God." In other words, go deep enough into your own mind and you will find the cosmic mind. Einstein said, "I want to know the mind of God. The rest are details." Science and spirituality both explore the source using different methods. And yet, among some of the greatest physicists, there's a recognition that the same goal is being searched for. Consciousness was ignored by 99% of practicing scientists for over a century. which isn't a surprise. All of us take for granted that we are alive, awake, and aware, which makes consciousness like wallpaper that everyone can see, but nobody takes notice of it. Over the past 20 years, however, consciousness has become one of the great open questions in science. If I want to find the hidden dimension from which the universe arose, I don't have to go back 13.7 billion years to the Big Bang. The hidden dimension exists right this minute. I only have to turn inward and look into my own consciousness. Awareness is how we access everything. I am aware that I'm alive. I'm aware that I have needs, hopes, wishes, dreams, and aspirations. I'm aware that I look out upon an infinite universe. The mystery of reality leads just here to your inner world, because for anything to be real, it must enter human awareness. If there's a reality beyond our awareness, we will never be able to prove it. I realize that consciousness isn't easy to think about. Some people have said that the human mind isn't smart enough to figure out how the human brain works, which seems like some kind of cosmic practical joke. God is easier to think about because we give the deity human qualities like anger and love and many other things. We project our needs upon God, asking Him to bless us and save us from harm. When people pray, they think they are praying to someone who's a person. Let's call this version God 1.0. He's the God of our childhood, but also of every faith that gives God a face, a body, emotions, and so on. Such a God can't be called primitive, however, because he's at least as complicated as human nature, which is very complicated. But the journey to the source, using the best knowledge we have, both from physics and spirituality, motivates us to evolve in our conception of God. The more evolved conception takes away the image of a white-bearded patriarch. It takes away all images. In fact, all Eastern images like Krishna and Shiva, it takes away gender. God isn't he, she, or it. What is put in their place is our creative source, here and now, which is pure consciousness and pure potential. All the embodiments of God in religion, whether Jesus, Krishna, Shiva, or others, give us a way to connect with higher consciousness, always understanding that these embodiments are not outside ourselves. They are a higher dimension of the self. God 2.0 includes and expands traditional notions of God by taking advantage of the oneness that underlies everything. Consciousness is consciousness, awaiting each person's discovery of just how deep and far it extends. Even though we have invoked science, God 2.0 isn't abstract or intellectual. Instead, it's about making a connection that will change everyone's life. First connection, God experience dawns. You become centered. The mind calms down and gains more self-awareness. Restlessness and dissatisfaction decrease. There are moments of bliss and inner peace which become more frequent. You find less resistance in your life. You feel that you matter in the larger scheme of things. You feel less stress, struggle, and pressure. Deeper connection. In the second phase, your God experience transforms you. Higher consciousness becomes real. You appreciate the value of simply being. Your desires come true with much less effort than before. In bursts of insight, you see why you exist and what your purpose is. Outer distractions lose their grip on you. You feel emotionally bonded with those you love. Anxiety and struggle drastically decrease. Your life is pervaded with a sense of rightness. And then, total connection. In the third and last stage, your true self is God. You merge with your source. God is revealed as pure consciousness, the essence of who you really are. In time, this essence will radiate in all of creation. You experience the light of life within yourself, the light of awareness within yourself. All is forgiven, all is loved. Your individual ego has expanded to become the cosmic ego, the cosmic identity. From now on, your evolution will take place as a journey into the transcendent. This is a breathtaking vision, but can we make it real? We can, by expanding our awareness. Meditation, centering prayer, contemplation, and self-reflection are time-honored techniques for expanding your awareness. The soul is the true self. What does it feel like to find your true self? How will your life change? How can you be released from your mind-forged handcuffs? I'll show you when we return. Stay with me.